Most people never face their father, not the man, but the imprint he left behind. The silence, the pressure, the invisible expectations that shaped the way you love, lead, and see yourself. Whether he was absent, harsh, distant, or even kind but emotionally unreachable, his energy became the blueprint of how you move through the world. You learned what safety felt like by watching his storms. You learned what love looked like by studying his absence. But healing doesn't begin with blame. It begins with truth, the uncomfortable kind that forces you to see how deeply his shadow still lives inside your decisions, your relationships, your self-worth. This isn't about judging your father. It's about freeing yourself from the version of you that was built around his wounds. Because until you do, you're not living your life, you're living the echo of his. If you're ready to face that truth, this video will mirror what most avoid. And if you feel seen here, subscribe. You're not alone in this kind of healing. 1. You were taught that love must be earned, not given. The wound didn't begin with shouting. It began with silence. The kind of silence that teaches you to measure your worth by performance, not presence. You learned early that love was conditional, something to be earned through good grades, hard work, obedience, or strength. Every small victory became an offering. Every failure, a reason to believe you were unworthy of affection. He may have never said the words, but you felt them. Be better, be stronger, don't disappoint me. And so you became a performer, a provider, a pleaser. You learned to anticipate needs, to suppress softness, to prove your value before anyone could question it. But no matter how hard you tried, the finish line kept moving. Because what you were chasing wasn't love, it was recognition. And recognition fades as soon as it's received. The truth is, your father couldn't give what he didn't know how to feel. He too was taught that love was earned through labor and sacrifice. You inherited not just his genes, but his unfinished lessons. His silence was not rejection, it was repetition. Healing begins when you stop chasing the love that was always meant to be given freely. It begins when you realize that your worth was never something to prove. It was something to remember. You are not your father's reflection. You are the ending of his pattern. 2. You mistook his distance for strength. He called it strength. The silence, the straight face, the unflinching stare. He told you men don't cry, that emotions are weakness. That survival depends on control, and so you believed him. You mistook distance for discipline. You mistook detachment for power. But deep down, you felt the emptiness that kind of strength creates. You learned to hide tenderness, to swallow grief, to lock away the parts of yourself that felt too human. You became the master of composure, admired on the outside, disconnected on the inside. He didn't know another way. His generation was raised on survival, not self-awareness. Vulnerability wasn't safe where he came from. And yet, what he passed down to you was the same cage that kept him trapped, emotional exile disguised as maturity. You began to fear your own depth, to flinch from love, to confuse numbness with peace. And when you looked at him, silent, unshaken, untouchable, you thought, that's what strength looks like. But strength without softness is just suppression. Power without presence is just pain wearing armor. The day you stopped idolizing his distance, you began to see him differently, not as a pillar, but as a man hiding his own wounds. And in that moment, you started to reclaim the strength he could never show. The strength to feel, to speak, to stay open, even when it hurts. 3. You're still trying to prove you're not him or just like him. For most of your life, you've been in quiet conversation with his ghost, even if he's still alive. Every decision, every risk, every word you speak carries the subtle question, am I like him? Or am I different enough? You either vowed to never repeat his mistakes or spent your years chasing his approval by becoming a mirror of his values. Both paths, though opposite, lead to the same prison, a life defined by his shadow. You might have built success to prove your worth, thinking, he'll finally see me now. Or maybe you walked away from everything he represented, determined to carve a new identity from rebellion. But rebellion is still reaction. It's still orbiting the same sun. What's hidden underneath is the ache of wanting to be seen by him, not against him. That unspoken desire to finally hear, I'm proud of you. The tragedy is that by trying so hard to escape his reflection, you kept him alive within you. His voice became your inner critic, his silence your measure of love, his flaws your secret fears. Healing begins when you stop trying to prove and start to understand. He wasn't your competition. He was your teacher in disguise, showing you both what to continue and what to end. Freedom doesn't come from becoming him or rejecting him. It comes from finally being you, without needing him as a reference point. 4. Your anger toward him is actually unprocessed grief. You tell yourself you're angry at his absence, his pride, his silence. But anger is only the mask grief wears when love has nowhere to go. What burns inside you isn't hatred, it's mourning. You're grieving the version of him that never showed up, the father who never said, I'm proud of you, the one who didn't know how to listen, how to comfort, how to stay. You're not just mad at what he did, you're aching for what never happened. The truth is, your heart built walls to protect you from that ache. It was easier to carry fire than emptiness. Anger feels like control. Grief feels like collapse. So you learned to tighten your jaw, harden your tone, and call it strength. But inside you were just a child waiting to be seen by the one who couldn't see himself. He wasn't ready to be what you needed. Maybe no one ever showed him how. So you inherited not just his silence, but his grief passed down like unfinished business. And every time you resent him, what you're really saying is, I wish you could have loved me the way I needed. Healing begins when you stop fighting him in your mind and start grieving him in your heart. Cry for the father you didn't have. Mourn the connection that never was. Because only when the grief flows can the anger rest. And in that stillness, something shifts. You stop waiting for closure from him and start giving it to yourself. 5. You become the father figure your soul was waiting for. There comes a moment when you realize he's not coming to save you. Not with the apology you imagined. Not with the approval you've been chasing since childhood. And that realization doesn't break you. It frees you, because healing the father wound isn't about changing him. It's about becoming what his absence was meant to awaken in you. It's about stepping into the role your younger self was waiting for. The protector, the guide, the voice of reassurance. The father within. You start to build what he couldn't give, not from bitterness, but from awareness. You learn discipline without cruelty. You speak truth without shame. You set boundaries not from fear, but from self-respect. And slowly, the void he left stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like space, sacred space for your own becoming. This is where strength changes shape. It's no longer about suppressing emotion or pretending not to care. It's about holding yourself through every emotion, as a father should. You learn to say to yourself what you always needed to hear. I'm proud of you. You're safe with me. You've already done enough. That's when the cycle breaks. Because the wound that began in his silence ends in your voice. And what started as pain becomes lineage rewritten, not through revenge, not through resentment, but through the quiet, powerful act of reparenting your own soul. The father wound is never just about him. It's about the parts of you that shape themselves around his absence, the silence that became your language, the striving that became your worth, the strength that became your armor. Healing doesn't mean rewriting the past. It means reclaiming what was always yours before pain taught you to hide it. When you stop waiting for him to become who you needed, you become it. You embody the protection, guidance, and grounded love that once felt missing. You realize that the father you've been seeking wasn't out there. He's been growing quietly inside you, waiting for your permission to lead. And that's where true healing begins, when the boy or girl inside you finally feels the safety of your own presence. The search ends, the cycle ends, the lineage heals. If this message found you, it's because your soul is ready to end the story, not by forgetting him, but by forgiving yourself. Leave a comment below if this spoke to you, and subscribe for more reflections on healing, awakening, and self-mastery. Your rebirth has already begun.